to talk about a topic that doesn't get the attention it deserves as part of national conversation, as part of even primetime national news. But today, as we have in the past often, we are again going to talk about the menace of the child pornography, or as it is rightly called, child sexually abusive material, the large-scale availability of it on social media right now, and the way the menace is increasing. Let me just tell you some basic facts. As per NCRB's own data, number of victims that we had registered, because we found out about it in 2016, was 48. That number has slowly grown to 1,081 such cases in 2019. And there are many, many more. This year, we've seen a large crackdown as well. But a lot more needs to be done. The victims of child sexually abusive material have actually increased 22 times in the last 4 years. Why are we talking about it today? Well, let me just give you the latest news development that's come in. And this is coming from Kerala, where a massive crackdown has been carried out. A covert operation by a team of 120 police officers across 19 different districts of Kerala. That's how huge this operation was. 19 districts, 120 officials involved. 400 people have been identified. 326 different locations were inspected. 41 people have been arrested. In this operation, 41 people have been arrested. So far, 268 cases have been registered, 285 devices have been seized. This just gives you a sense of how big this menace is. In one large-scale operation, this is what we have cracked down upon. How do we further stop it? Do we need more regulations? How do we make ourselves more aware and those around us about this menace? Some of the things I want to ask our panelists this evening. Let's say good evening to Ritesh Bhatia, cybersecurity expert, Mr. Ritesh Singh, IG for Maharashtra, Prabhat Kumar, Head of Child Protection with Save the Children, and Nivedita Chopra, Director Partnership and Programs for India Child Protection Fund. Let me actually start with Mr. Ritesh Singh. You've been closely linked, in such kind of operations, Mr. Singh. Help our people, our viewers understand the scale and the gravity of it, and how does it function now on social media, how it's become so easy? Mr. Singh, I believe your mic is off. If you can just check that, please. We can't hear you.
Yeah. So the operations that you see now have been normally reported by a body called NECMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, in which basically gives this material to Indian government, and Indian government sends it to states, where states arrange their own crackdowns. Maharashtra had a large operation called Operation Blackface last year. See, but social media platforms, which basically were supposed to be some kind of a public square, have also become a breeding ground for pedophiles, for child groomers, for people who are sharing these infringing images, and for committing various kinds of crimes. Now, under POCSO, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, anybody who comes to know of such a material, CASM, should be reporting it under Section 4. Otherwise, it's a crime. But that doesn't seem to be happening. In the US, while this NECMEC functions as a body where all of these platforms have come together and they report to the government, there is no such mechanism here. So it's time that these platforms, in every such case, inform the local government here. Rather than just taking this content down, they should inform, because it's a crime against state. And somewhere social media is acting as a facilitator of these crimes. They should take active measures to find out such content and pass it on to law enforcement so that these perpetrators are found and arrested. Please.
Okay, Ritesh, would you want to also comment on this, because you've also very closely worked with the with the authorities here in Mumbai of what's going on right now?
Yeah, Tanvi. So firstly, let's congratulate the Kerala police for doing a phenomenal job. And secondly, a big thank you to you for taking this up. because this is like a kind of an online pandemic, and we really need much hard discussions on this. So I really thank you and your channel for taking this up. So Maharashtra Cyber also had done a phenomenal job like 2 years back. I remember, I had spoken to Brijesh sir, and then we investigated, and a lot of this was being circulated on this WhatsApp group. So currently, if you see, there is a lot of this going on WhatsApp groups. So these are, Tanvi, these are basically normal groups which are meant for exchange of like adult pornography. So that's really absolutely, kind of okay with the authorities and the platforms and all. But over there are these people who demand something, the sexually abused material related to the children. And that is where there is a problem. And I feel there is like zero awareness, because the ones even who have observed about it or like in the group and are not even participating, even they can face like 6 months of jail term. So there is very less awareness about it. And it's just through like media we come to know a lot about it. Like the way we are coming to know about the corona through caller tunes and the TV ads. I think this is something that the government needs to do a lot. Now, besides these WhatsApp group, there is like a Telegram group, because WhatsApp is restricted to 256 members or so. And here you have people like with 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 members on the Telegram groups. Thirdly, there is this the dark web, and now because we have spoken so often about dark web and people also know about it, everybody wants to download those kind of the browsers to access the dark web. They go over there, and like it's so easily kind of available over there. Lastly, let me also tell you, the intermediaries are not doing enough. I mean, I wouldn't say they are even doing 1% of what they can do. They have the tools and technologies. They've got everything to do all sorts of things. But why not this? So, if they take like for example, TikTok got banned, and, TikTok was one kind of, as British sir also said, the breeding part when he mentioned, that was like a kind of a breeding ground for all these people. So here they took action, but after a lot of hue and cry and all. But what about the other platforms? Now that TikTok is not there, what about the other platforms? So there's a lot that can be done, and we need to do this. Lastly, I mean, I'm talking about like how it is coming up. Lastly, let me also tell the parents that you really need to understand what kids are doing, because even when I went on the dark web to, when I was investigating and looking at for these things, there are like young kids as young as 6-year-olds, 8-year-old, who are like saying that I'm ready to do a show, and it is for this much amount. So this is where the parents also need to like be observant about what the kids are doing. Tanvi.
Okay, let's take that point across, and to Prabhat Kumar first. Prabhat Kumar, there are two aspects that I want to talk about. One is awareness, which I feel is also a big challenge right now, because not too many people understand what's happening and how big it is. And the other is the legal structure and the regulations that are available. If you can shed some more light on these issues.
Sure. Not like you pointed out, there are two important elements to this. One is entirely about awareness, and awareness amongst the entire structure, right from the intermediaries to the police. Someone was giving example. If you want to go and report such thing to police, not all the police actually take up those complaints. Then when it comes to parent, how many parents know about this parental settings or the privacy setting that they can tell children? In fact, we have seen in many cases it's contrary. The child is telling to parent how to actually make it safe. So that is like there is a lot of lack of awareness. People talk about law. There are plenty of laws. The IT Act is there. Juvenile Justice Act is there. Someone gave example of POCSO Act. That also has sections on the tackling of the child pornographic material. But hardly these acts are implemented well. They are not actually, not many people know. So that awareness is completely lacking. And one of the places where we can start, I feel, is starting with like teacher with whom children has a lot of interactions. So like how do we train teachers to take up issues like this? How do we train or conduct programs for parents so that parents are better sensitized, better aware. And here I would want to again reiterate that I'm not talking about parents' control from the policing perspective. We can get rid of one app over the other, but the important thing is how do you make that child resilient so that child knows or the parents know that my child can handle this, because if you ban one app, other app will come. So there are a lot of advantages of social media, but how do we use that responsibly is one thing. Second, the biggest problem is about the collaboration and coordination. So we know that different departments, then between different states, because online abuse is not something which is happening at one geography. Someone could be sitting across the border of India or in other state and using this. How do we better cooperate with each other and support? So there is need of international cooperation, and within India, cooperation between interstate, that is very important. Lastly, from the awareness perspective, where there are a number of districts where we have something called district child protection plan, which address the vulnerabilities that children has. How many of these plans talk about vulnerability related to the child sexual abuse material? Not many plans do that. I think it is time when we start engaging with those officials, those frontline staff who can actually help us in taking this agenda forward. And there are some successes that we have seen. You gave example of NCRB 2019 data, but I can tell you that post 2019, with everything gone online, there has been unprecedented increase in use of internet or use of social media that has drastically increased. And such people who groom or make use of child sexual abuse materials, they will be taking advantage of these positions. So it's time that we put this into our education system,
Okay.
put child safety into our child protection systems. That is need of the hour.
And what is also a little shocking, and specifically in this case, in this crackdown that we are seeing, those involved are educated IT professionals with a lot of access and understanding of how to use the technology to then disseminate this content in easier way and in a smarter way to even evade the authorities. But I also wanted to take our viewers through some of the recent other crackdowns which have happened in our country. And in fact, just last month, there was another such racket that was busted with an engineer from Uttar Pradesh was then arrested. He had been running this racket since 2019, and he would use social media platforms like Instagram and Telegram to actually advertise, to reach out to possible clients, and then the transactions would happen online, and he would share that content with them again on social media. In April 2020, in Maharashtra, 46 different people were held. 130 FIRs were actually filed during the lockdown period itself. In June 2020, in Kerala itself, 47 people were arrested. 140 electronic devices were seized. There was an international racket that I remember, and we went into the details of that as well last year, around the same time in October, where 7 Indians were involved. It was a large multi-nation racket that had actually been busted by authorities. They were using WhatsApp groups, and there were about 29 WhatsApp groups at that point that I remember had actually come under the scanner. Many more examples, and we'll keep running those details on our screens as well. But how do I see this, Nivedita Chopra? Is this all of this action? Is it a sign of our authorities now responding quicker to the menace, or a sign of just how big and how dangerous this entire thing has become?
Right. I actually think it's both. I think the numbers, when we speak of prevalence, are huge. Our research study showed that only in 100 cities and only on the public web, so not WhatsApp, not the dark web, there were about 5 million searches for child sexual abuse material in India. And then when you look at the cases, they're in hundreds. So you see the disparity that exists in the problem, the scale of the problem, and the response system. So in fact, the numbers that you quoted in the beginning, are actually very encouraging, that the reporting's going up. Huge congratulations to Manoj Abraham and his team in the Kerala police for consistently not just doing these large scale operations, but building their own capacity, strengthening their own training, focusing on how they can keep up with the technological advancements that the perpetrators are using. As you rightly pointed out, they seem to be way ahead of the game. So our own response system needs that kind of investment. In fact, the Kerala model is a fantastic model to scale. They run this under the Cyber Dome. And this kind of investment, this kind of coordination, this kind of response is essential, not just to sort of address the protection response, which is the legal response that such perpetrators should face, but also to create a deterrence that the law is doing something. So it's not the impunity of people who are searching for child sexual abuse material, sharing it, is immense. We spoke about, the IT Act and the POXO Act, and the cases under that. If you look at the pendency of those cases, it'll take 10 to 12 to 15 years to even take them through the legal system. So in that sense, what is the accountability of, the perpetrators? Like, there is no deterrence. So I think that those are the things that the justice delivery system needs to start responding better. I also think, and I think Ritesh very rightly said, the tech companies and the intermediaries need to be held more accountable. This is about the idea of child sexual abuse material reaching this scale. It's come through some channels and it's been allowed to come through. If there are technologies that can, detect and preempt things like terrorist attacks and do other intelligence, why can they not be applied to child sexual abuse material? This is a crime which not just happens once when the material is created, but it happens every single time that this material is shared and viewed and distributed and bought and sold. So in that sense, I think the response system is working. I think it needs to work better. I think that I also agree with the panel that the only solution lies in prevention. And child sexual abuse material isn't the only sort of danger here. There is a lot of grooming happening now, which is essentially perpetrators or potential pedophiles online reaching out to children, forming emotional connections, having them perform sexual acts on camera, and using that for sextortion, keeping them in the loop, keeping them abused and exploited. There are issues that have cropped up related to live streaming. So in COVID, brothels have shut down, so the live streaming of child sexual abuse has now become a growing business. This is a global concern. And perpetrators have found new and innovative ways to reach out to children who are now online all the time through gaming platforms and other social media that parents and older folks don't seem to be on and don't seem to get how it works. So understanding when you are being groomed, understanding what this might lead to, understanding how you can report this crime, understanding that it is not something to be ashamed of, is the huge work that needs to be done to actually solve this problem.
Okay, I have two very simple, questions. One to Mr. Ritesh Singh. Mr. Singh, do you agree that we need to also make some of these platforms and these intermediaries perhaps a lot more accountable for what's being done on these platforms?
Yes, if there's a movement in the United States also, and they are coming up with a new act called Earn It Act, and which would make them liable for any child sexual abuse material. I think we need stronger laws. We need these platforms to voluntarily report, not just to the US government, but to our government also. We need stronger real-time mechanisms to preserve this evidence, pass it on to law enforcement, and see that these perpetrators are discovered and punished. Tanvi?
Okay, I appreciate every time, Mr. Ritesh Singh, you do join us and take the time out to shed more light on this issue. Ritesh, very quickly for the understanding of our viewers, to the point that Nivedita was also making of how prevalent it's become, how children are not realizing they are being approached and trapped by these pedophiles online. How young are the victims of such crimes?
Well, Tanvi, in a recent survey that was done, that was conducted, it was like around like 70 to 80% of them were like, below 12 years age. And in that 80% also, around 60% were below 8 years of age. So we need to understand that, people think it is only about the teens when we are talking about child sexual abusive material. It is not just about the teens, it is about the adolescents. On the dark web, if you go and see, there are there are babies as small as 3 years old also. So, this is also another thing that please parents need to understand. You don't have the consent of uploading pictures of your own children. You never know what it can lead to. So this is kind of the percentage that I'm talking about, Tanvi.
Okay, I am completely out of time, but I do thank all four of our panelists for joining me, taking the time out and, helping our viewers understand. I think it's a very critical issue, not often spoken about, but must be, especially in times of digital media and social media. It becomes even more important for us to be aware. And if we come across something like this, for us to report it to the authorities, so proper crackdown and action can be taken. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us on this conversation.